Hey now Brawlers, today we're going to take a look at a light card game called Wands. Now, this is a game that was on Kickstarter either earlier in the year or maybe last year that I backed because it looked like a light Uno type game. Believe it or not, I kind of like Uno. I know that's sacrilege, but it had cute art and a cute theme where you're all like young wizards and sorceresses in training at this magical academy. I mean, there's not a ton of story to it, but you're all these young wizards and wizardesses, and you're trying to just beat up the other players. Everyone's got life points. You're trying to knock them out, so it's kind of sort of like Magic the Gathering in that regard, just barely. And you're all doing this through sort of Uno type card play, just going around playing cards, drawing cards, and trying to be the ones who knock out the other players. Definitely very light. Let's go ahead and take a look at the game, and we're going to come back. I'll let you know what I think. Okay, I'm going to give you a mercifully brief overview of Wands. This is a competitive card game for 2 to 5 players where the goal is to be the last wizard left standing, wizard or sorceress or whatever. Each player is going to start with 20 life points. There's no way to keep track of that in the game, so you'll have to grab a pen and paper or dice or something to that effect, or just keep track of it. And then each player is going to take 7 cards from the main deck. This is it. This is the entire game. You have this deck of cards, and you're going to shuffle up, deal out 7 to everyone, and then the game is going to begin. On your turn, you draw a card, you play a card, resolve what happens. That's the game. So let's go through what some of the cards do. Well, the majority of the games are these spell cards here, which you're going to use to try and inflict damage on the other players or do otherwise very nasty effects to them. So Pyrrhic Victory here says you always affect the next player in line unless it says otherwise. So discard X cards, hit the next player for X plus 1 damage. Okay, that seems pretty cool. The Drought of Life says you gain 2 life points. The Eldritch Flames hit the next player for 2 damage. Let's look at another one. The Vampiric Gaze. Swap life points with the next player. Now, these are all very powerful effects, and you only have 20 life points, but don't you worry, because the next player has a chance to respond to whatever spell you cast, even if it doesn't deal damage to them, even if it was just the Drought of Life. And they can do that by playing one of these counter spells. For instance, the spell here says cancel the last spell or counter spell that's played. So once you play a card, you're going to leave everything out, and then that player is the next player has a chance to respond by playing a counter spell against it. But then the next player also has the opportunity to play a card in response, like, oh, no, 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 no. I am going to worsen that effect, which means that add the original magic effect again, shift all active magic and counterspell effects to the next player, and only that player. But then that player has a chance to respond like, no, 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 I am going to dispel that. It can just keep going around and around. In fact, it can go back to the original player who had the first spell and give them a chance to dispel the dispel, the dispel, the dispel, that worsens their dispel. And hopefully it gets resolved. Well, and this keeps going until someone does not want to respond. Then everything takes effect, no matter what it was, whether it was being dispelled or losing life or swapping life or whatever it was. Resolve that stack, goes to the next player. You don't have to play a card. You could just lose a life point. If you don't want to play a card, or if you can't play a card, you lose a life point on your turn, which is probably a better and faster way to go about playing this game. You have other card effects in the game, like that are just different types of spells that with this little burst symbol that makes it harder to counter, like the Icy Grasp that hits the next player for 1 damage and skip that player, or the Rampaging Reverse, which reverses the order of play and hit previous player for 1 damage. Does some of this stuff sound familiar to you? Like maybe a certain other famous card game you know? Anyways, you also have, trust me, somewhere in here there's skip cards and things like that, but that's Wands. Let's just get to my final thoughts. Whew, boy. This one, I'll just come right out and say it. This is a pretty terrible game. In its defense, I will say that other people at the table that I played with seemed to like it more than I did. Like, you're being too hard on it, Nick. But the problem for me is that it is very similar in some regards to Uno, which is just a dumb game. Uno is just a very dumb, very simple game. I just enjoy it because it is so simple and because, you know, I grew up with it, and but at the same time I recognized that it wasn't that great a game. I was like, okay, let's get a game that has that same just basic concept of playing cards. It's pretty dumb, pretty simple, very fast, and just add some cool new stuff to it to make it a little more strategic. And I think that was the idea here for Wands, but the stuff that was added is just irritating and bogs down the game and just makes it overly long and not fun. The concept is cool, that the fact that you're playing these spells to try to knock down your opponent's life, which is 20, which I guess is the standard amount of life for like 90% of games now that have life points, but you trying to knock out the other player and they have a chance to counterspell you. Fantastic, that's cool, that's a neat little thing. But the issue is that person can counterspell, and then the next person can counterspell that counterspell. Then the next person can play a completely different spell that does something completely different and resets the whole chain. That idea may be neat, but in practice, it's extremely aggravating and boring. Playing the cards out and just saying, okay, these are the cards that are like in play right now, inactive. What are you going to do? Are you going to do anything? Yes, you are going to do anything? You're going to counter it? Oh, you're not going to do anything? Okay, that's fine. Then it's dead. And then let's go. And then the next person goes, but let's bring that back because I'm going to play this card that rewinds time and brings that out. And of course, there are the next player gains, you either gain another turn, or you gain life points, or skip another player's turn, or all these, things that are just the same irritations, the problems that people would have had with a game like Uno, but are exacerbated by how long the game takes, waiting for other people to decide what to play, then deciding whether or not they're going to counter it or dispel it, or just do something crazy and wacky to it and go all the way around. I mean, it's just a drag. It's supposed to be a light, fun card game, but it is light and not fun. It is light and long and not fast at all. So I can't recommend this at all. I really can't. Other people in my game seem to like it for what it was, for how dumb it was, and for the theme. And I do like the artwork. The artwork is the one thing that I really like about this game, but I wish that artwork and graphic design was in another better game, or that you just swapped it out and put good mechanics into it. The rule sheet is atrocious. I got an update soon after the game was shipped out to backers saying, okay, here's the frequently asked questions already for a game that just went out a few days ago. And it was just a long laundry list of things that essentially summed up to, if you don't know how to play a rule, just do it however you want. I'm sorry, that is unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. I'm not tolerating that in any games anymore. I'm just not. There's too many fantastic games that know how to write a good rule book, and don't leave it up to the player's imagination as to how something should work. That's not why I buy a game. You tell me how it works and let me experience what you're trying to get across to me. What this game got across to me was just aggravation. Pure aggravation. And I know that this is the first game from this company, so I hate to be so hard on it, but I think that in this case, tough love is a good thing. Look out there at all the other games that are on the market. Look at all the light, fun card games that there are, like Love Letter and Lost Legacy, and all the other small card games from AEG, and from Seiji Kanai, and look at variations of Uno that other people have put out. Look at all of these games. Look at games like Citadels, and just take a look at them. Play them. They're out there. They already exist. And because they do, you cannot make this game in a vacuum and pretend like it's the greatest, most revolutionary, fun, light card game. Maybe you didn't have that high of an aspiration, whoever made the game, but really, had you played other games, you would have seen that you had to go back to the drawing board for this one. That is the #1 takeaway from this. I seriously don't mean to be rude and aggravating about it, but this game could have been something better than what it was, because the idea was there, the artwork was there, but it's just not a good game. So totally pass this one if you see it. My name is Nick, this has been Board Game Brawl, and I'm reminding you to get out there and game every day and in every way. Take care.